Leah Tsinajinnie enters the MindSide on Episode 10, a conversation about the mental side of disc golf. Leah Tsinajinnie is brought to you by Lone Star Disc, OTB Discs, Upper Park, powwows.com, and Throwpink. Welcome to the MindSide, Leah Tsinajinnie. Thank you. Appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Appreciate it. So mental side of the game. We'll just jump right in. What is the mental side of disc golf to you?
To me, I place a lot of value in it. I think that a lot of the success in disc golf comes from a very strong foundation in your mental game. And I came from Ultimate Frisbee, so we had a lot of mental game aspects in that sport. So I kind of feel like when I transitioned to disc golf, I kind of had a leg up in it, just because I felt practice in just staying positive and having a game plan and trying to stick to that game plan. Um, so yeah, I'd say the mental side of disc golf is very important.
Yeah. So when it comes to the game plan and game planning, how do you game plan, I guess, for a new course or for a tournament that you're about to participate in?
So definitely requires multiple practice rounds. I'd say since I'm newer on tour, the number of reps that I've had on a course is lower than most of the touring pros. And so my practice rounds, I'd say I get a lot more from them just because each time you play a course, um, you're going to learn something more about it. And sometimes when you're in those tricky situations, especially in wooded courses, knowing the course is super important. So with a game plan, you kind of just try to decide which holes you're trying to score on. And for me, if the distance is a factor, the OB is a factor, whether or not the field is scoring well on the hole is a factor. And so I'm a big time like numbers, stats kind of person. I really like knowing the stats of how I've played a course previously compared to the field. And so I definitely look at the kinds of things that like Statmando puts out and UDIS stats in general. And so if I can break down a course and know where my strengths are in it and just know that, okay, maybe I'm only attacking like less than half of the holes, that's fine. But if I'm shooting for par on some of them, then that makes the shots a lot shorter and more easily, like consistently, like kind of shots that I can do better. So if I'm trying to score, being more aggressive, then I know that uh, earlier in the tournament I can maybe go for it, and if I wasn't successful, then maybe in the second or third round I'll probably just be more conservative. So my game plan definitely revolves around like how the field is doing, uh, and how I'm feeling, and whether or not I'm confident. Because if I'm not confident, then I can't do it. So definitely, um, like the mindset in the day can be different than from round to round. So having that game plan and knowing that I'm going to stick to it, or having the alternatives in mind is important.
Yeah. Um, so when you are coming up with that game plan, is there anything that you're doing maybe prior to arriving at the tournament site? Is there anything, preparation wise that you can do beforehand?
Yeah, so I know a lot of the courses now, but I definitely have watched hours and hours of footage of DGPT courses. So if I need a reminder these days, then I'll maybe watch a round from the previous year or something, just to remind myself of the holes before I get there. But otherwise, I feel like uh, maybe just looking at the caddy book if I don't want to watch footage is another main thing that I do. Um, and maybe before getting to the course, I'm also just trying to decide how many days of practice I think I need. So if it's a course that I'm more comfortable with, or if it's more straightforward, like it's a more open course, then maybe I'm only going to practice 2 or 3 times. But ideally, I can get 4 practice rounds in a week. Um, but rest is also important. So if I'm not going to um, put 4 rounds of practice in, then I'm just making sure that I'm using the off day really well to rest up.
So how are you recognizing and prioritizing when that rest is needed?
I'd say it really depends on how much the previous week kicked my butt. um, if on Sunday I don't even want to like travel, like I am always between like leaving on Sunday after the tournament or just waiting and traveling on Monday. More often than not, Monday is my travel day, and so if it's close enough, you can travel Monday and still practice. So it's really just the Monday morning wake up, and if I feel like I'm good to go, then I feel confident in practicing that day. Um, or if it was a really long course, or if it was more than 3 days of competition, it's more likely that I take that Monday off.
So you did mention that you have the ultimate background, um, and you said to me before we started, the third tournament was a disc golf pro tour event,
Yes.
which is a cannonball from the high dive. So run me through that mindset of that decision process of, hey, I'm just gonna go on tour. This is where I'm at.
Yeah, I feel like the typical smart route is playing the amateurs tournaments, working your way up to MA1 or FA1. And then from there, like there is that decision on whether or not you want to turn pro. And a lot of people just say they're going to wait till they win their first tournament or whatnot before they move up to pro. So if they win an FA1, then they're going to turn pro. That kind of thing is, I think, the typical way that people try to decide if they're going to do that or not. And for me, like I'd already played at the highest levels in ultimate. Like I have 2 national championships through USA Ultimate Club with the DC women's team. And so having been in a place where I know that I'm competitive and that I know that I can win, I knew that if I played with other women that were at the top level, that I could try to match them. And so for me, it was more like to be the best, I need to play with the best. And so I wasn't afraid to be the worst in the field. Like I finished last in multiple events, second to last, third to last. Like these are the things that, have come with jumping into pro really soon. And that to me wasn't an indication of failing. It was just where I was at. And so just being confident in yourself and like knowing that like whatever your process is going to be might not be what everyone else thinks it should be. And just knowing that I just have all the confidence in myself that I can be one of the best players in the world. So knowing that, I didn't have any fear of failing in these big events. And so when I saw, it was also a combination of not really knowing what I was doing. So when I saw a disc golf pro tour event, I just was like, oh, okay, that's cool. It's a disc golf pro tour event. Let me go try to play in it. And so that, along with just having had that one DGPT event under my belt, and like everyone being super nice and really welcoming in the FPO field, like that made it easier for me. I definitely would say having that like community of like, especially when we were going through the pandemic, like having that community really did help me feel confident in my decision.
Yeah, very good. So being that you have been a champion, a world champion, achieved that at the highest level.
A US national champion.
Okay. So being that you have been a US national champion, and achieved at that high of a level in disc sports, did that experience help you with your transition into disc golf?
Yes, it definitely did, just because like skill wise, I would say backhand was probably the most translatable skill. Like forehand does not feel natural at all compared to an ultimate forehand, and putting does not translate at all. So skill wise, like backhands are still my, probably the, go further than my forehands. And um putting, I think I just naturally got good at, because there's no movement in ultimate except for maybe like a push pass. That is kind of like putting. And uh, I think, putting spin on the frisbee is where I get a lot of that translated skill from. And then on the mental side of it, um, like I feel like when you make a mistake, it's very easy to get frustrated, very easy to, start doubting the choices you're making. And, it's not to say that I don't experience that as well, but I think that I move through it more quickly. And if I have one moment where I throw a disc and I knew it wasn't with like my full faith in it, like I was like, okay, well now the next one you got to step up and just do it. So I think those kinds of like internal monologues that you have with yourself, generally like mine are more positive, and like I feel like that I can turn it around more quickly. Because you do see top players in the game that you can like visibly see when they start to falter because of their mental game. And so, there's plenty of examples where a player was up in the lead and the vying for the top, and they make one mistake which turns into five mistakes. So I think in ultimate, like we you make a mistake, you have a timeout, you have a team huddle, and you bring it together and you reset and go back at it. And so having switched from a team sport to an individual sport, um, that part was tricky for me, but just like having had those conversations with teammates, like I know how to have a conversation with myself about these kinds of things. Um, and uh, I feel like when the pressure is on, uh, that makes me actually like dig in deeper. So that's definitely something where you might see another player that struggles in the mental game side. If the pressure is on them, they're gonna perform less well. And with ultimate, like you have people watching you, like it's on a field, so like everyone's there watching you. And so I just getting used to that pressure of like people watching you, it actually, for me, it makes me feel like I want to perform better. So I always try to encourage like my friends and like fans to come out and watch, because I feel like the more that there's people there, like I want to be better for them, and to like, show off like a cool throw that I want to do or make a big putt. Um, And yeah, I think those are the main things from Ultimate that have translated to the disc golf side really well.
Mhm. So when you are in a situation where, let's just say, a high pressure situation, what are some of the things that you're doing, either physically or mentally, to kind of calm yourself or rise above in those high pressure situations?
I think a big part of it is like visualization. Um, there's uh, plenty of visualization exercises out there. And like one of my favorites is to like before a tournament round is just to like visualize the entire round in my head before I even like get my day going. And so I'll play the entire round in my head of how I want it to go. And my good buddy Lisa Fakis, who I would also say has very good mental game. One of the things that I added this year is like, okay, so like if you're afraid to make a mistake, one of the other things I started practicing was like playing a round out where everything goes wrong. And so imagining the worst way to play a hole and like knowing the best outcome and the worst outcome is really important because in a round you have to know what the worst mistake to make is and to know that you can't do. And so when you know what the worst mistake is and what the best outcome is, you're kind of balancing the two. And when you're succeeding, you're having that really good visualization round played out in reality. Um, and then another thing that I like to do is uh, just breath work. Um, I like to make sure that I'm exhaling on my putts, and I like to make sure that I take a deep breath before putting or before a drive. Like Missy Gannon is probably one of the you know best players out there that you can see that she's very disciplined in doing that kind of breath work. Um, and I think that is super important just for your body in general. So, taking a deep breath is very easy to say, but not everyone does it. Um, and I would say also just, uh, these exercises that we're doing where I'm visualizing the best and worst outcome is like, yes, that's a good exercise, but in the moment, like I'm not worried about what the outcome is. So I just I've practiced and I know my game plan. So I just let it happen when I'm in the moment of throwing and I'm not worried about what the outcome is. And having that kind of mindset in the moment, I think helps you execute your plan.
So when you are not concerned with the outcome, what do you become concerned with?
Um, I think that it's more of just like when I'm taking that deep breath, it's just like relaxing, and then like I'm focusing on a point or wherever I want the disc to go. So I'm just have that one point in mind that I'm trying to hit. Um, and so if it's a putt, I'd say a lot of people look at the basket, but if it's a longer putt, you should actually be looking at a point in the middle of the flight of where you want to hit because the longer the putt is, the more that the fade matters. And so if you know the flight of your putt, then you should just hit a certain point in your putt. And like if you're trying to hit a hyzer, just know that you're hitting it for a lefty backhand. I'm hitting a certain point on the left side. If I'm trying to throw an anhyzer, then I'm just trying to picture um, maybe the angle of the disc and how I want to release it on the angle. So I'm not always picturing like where I want to throw the disc to, but it might be me picturing the exact angle I want to release it at or that kind of thing, depending on the kind of shot it is.
Is there anything that you do or have done outside of disc golf to help you with visualization?
Yeah. I'd say, I mean, I think any exercise in creativity helps with like your visualization because like your mind is very powerful, right? That's why we have this whole podcast on it and many other things. If you are keeping yourself active in body and in mind, then that just kind of strengthens those like neural pathways, however you want to call it. And so I do like to do things outside of disc golf that help me um, keep my brain active. So I do like puzzles. I like any sort of creativity. Like we did a paint night towards one of the last tournaments. And I'd say just any kind of exercise for your brain is just as important as your physical exercise. Um, and just trying to eat healthy. I feel like um, I I I'd say it's harder on the road to eat healthy just because we're always traveling and you never know where you're going to be. But you know, treating your mind right uh, is also done through eating well. And then for just visualization exercises, it could be maybe I have like a moment. I don't always consistently meditate, but just any sort of mindfulness where um, if I can take 3 minutes to go through this. I have this Insight app or whatever, and so it's like a mindfulness app. And so, you know, going through the app and doing a random like 3 to 10 minute type thing, I think is really good for resetting. And then I'd say any type of relaxation activity is good for me too. Um, and anytime I'm giving myself time to just think, like I went and played in Augusta in the inaugural Pan Am Disc Golf Championships. It was a team disc golf championships in Augusta
Mhm.
at the beginning of December, or I guess at the beginning of November. Yeah, it was almost a month ago now. Um, and we had this Airbnb with a nice bathtub, and I got to relax in the bathtub and like
Mhm.
for like 3 minutes, I just wasn't doing anything other than just like trying to like close my eyes and like do breath work and like take deep breaths and that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, I'd say that there's plenty of things you can do that would strengthen those visualization skills.
Yeah, and it sounds like just as recovery is a part of your physical game, it sounds like the mental recovery is a big deal as well.
For sure.
Um, what what are some things that you have found that will help you boost your confidence?
Um, I like to have dance parties before the round, like on the way to the course. I play my music really loud. And it could be like rap, hip hop, pop, whatever. It could be even a Disney song, just whatever the moment is. And just like hyping myself up that way. I feel like not everyone like needs that, but for like especially coming from Ultimate Frisbee, where it's like a very team aspect, like we were always trying to hype each other up before the game by like having literal dance parties on the field before the game started. And so now that I'm in an individual sport, maybe hopefully I'm with friends going to the course or with teammates, but a lot of the times I'm by myself. So I'm just doing those same things that I did from Ultimate, but just by myself. And then, uh, you know, I do believe in affirmations. And so having different affirmation statements and physically writing them, you know, I think that the tactileness of physically writing, which we do not do as much anymore. Um, Physically writing what I want to say. So I say, you know, I make birdies, or like I have the abilities to to score well on this course, or even just like more broadly, like I believe in my skills and abilities in disc golf. And so it could be as simple or as long as you want the affirmation statement to be like, I've had 5 sentence affirmations, and I've had 3 word ones. So anytime you're writing something down and you're saying it out loud, you can say it to yourself in the mirror, you can say it to yourself on Snapchat. Like, I've literally just like, sent silly things to my sister before. Um, and having that, I think, is super important. Um, Maybe not everyone does it, but if you don't do it, that's an easy thing to try, is having those affirmation statements.
So I guess going from those affirmation statements and creating what you want your future to be, what are your goals in disc golf? What would you like to see be your future?
I definitely want to win a disc golf pro tour event. So that is absolutely one of my goals, is to win a disc golf pro tour event. Um, Before that can happen, like, I have in between goals, uh, like getting on elite card coverage and getting on chase card coverage, and those kinds of things will be along the way. And uh, I believe that I could win a major like Champions Cup, because a lot of my strength comes in from the wood side of the game. And so anytime there's a wooded course, I feel like I have strengths in that, and that I have advantages in that. So if there's ever a major that I feel like I could win, then I would make that a specific goal. Champions Cup would be one of them. Um, and then I do like process goals. So I'd say uh, maybe people have a lot of outcome goals, but process goals are just as important. So I can tell myself that I want to throw 3 flex forehands that land in the circle, and it's par 3, or if it's an approach shot. So if it's a full drive approach shot, like, I might say during this round, I'm throwing 3 flex forehands that I want to hit C1 with. Or I could say I want to putt. Anytime I have an opportunity to have an Anheuser putt, I'm gonna putt Anheuser on it, like if it's a straddle. So any type of process goals where I'm specifically working on a skill that I don't think I'm good at yet and that I want to improve on. I'd say a lot of my scoring in tournaments isn't the best possible scoring, because a lot of the times I am choosing to do something that challenges me, that might not be the best scoring outcome. So maybe I go for the island hole because under pressure, I'm going to have to go for that island hole. And maybe I've only hit it once in practice, but to me, the experience of throwing to make the island is more important than saving par, or getting par instead of birdie or bogey. So I'd say that a lot of players, they they can choose the safer route, but when it comes down to it, if you're going to be the best, you have to practice in tournament what you want to do to win. And so a lot of the times I'd make mistakes, but it's the process part of it that matters to me more than the outcome.
Then that's a good point of throwing for the experience.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep yourself patient? And you also noted earlier that you don't really try to pay attention to the outcome, which is in line with this as well. But how how are you able to stay patient in those moments when maybe it's, like you said, not the best scoring opportunity, but you're looking to improve?
Yeah, I'd say that it it definitely tests my patience. I will say that I like I've said before, I do get frustrated, but I think that I move past it and know that I'm trusting the process. And so, um, in the moment, like I just know that I've already let go of what the outcome is. And so, just reminding myself of that and saying, it's okay, you got it next time, or it's okay, like you almost had it and you only needed to do this one more thing that you're totally capable of doing. And so, just reassuring myself or just saying that I can let it go. If I did it and I knew it wasn't within my abilities yet in the moment, like sure, that's okay because I'm not there yet. Or if I did it and I know I could have totally executed it, I'm like, it's okay. I got it next time.
Do you do you have shot routines, pre-shot routines? And if so, are they rigid?
That's a great question. I just tweeted something this week that is very relevant to this question. It was roughly the physical part of your putting routine doesn't matter as the mental aspects of your putting routine. And so I feel like putting routines are talked about very often in disc golf, and everyone likes to look at everyone's putting routine and um, and try to figure out what their putting routine is. But I always feel like it's very focused on like how it looks and like what is the person physically doing. And you do need to physically prep yourself for a putt. So I do think movements like rocking or like bouncing up and down, like something where you're getting your body prepped to make the putting movement, is important. And like those kind of pump fake movements are important, but I think that the side of it that people don't think about is where their headspace is at for the putt. So when I have my putting routine, it does not look the same every time because I'm just going through a checklist in my head. And so in my head, I tell myself that I can make the putt. So I always tell myself that I can make the putt. And if I go up to a putt and I don't feel confident to it, if it's a death putt, like I'm most likely laying it up. If it's a circle two putt and I don't feel like I'm going to make it, it's on a weird green, I'm probably going to lay it up. But I don't lay up a lot of putts, and that's just because I have a lot of confidence in my putting. And so in my head, I tell myself that I can make the putt. Physically, I do take that deep breath in and out, and then I uh, visualize the putt. And so I have a, a you know how people talk about the vapor trail. Someone threw the perfect shot, so you're just trying to follow their vapor trail. So for putting specifically, I have the vapor trail that I'm trying to hit because I know how my putter flies. And so I have the hit point that I'm trying to get to. And so I tell myself I can make it. I visualize where it's going to go. And then I take that deep breath in and then I putt on the exhale. And so I think that if people had a mental checklist, like if they had their um, like I can make this or whatever it is that they want to say. Sometimes I say I like big putts and I cannot lie. I literally tell myself that in my head. And if they can have a mental checklist of okay, on the outward side of it, let me make sure that my hips aligned a certain way because I feel like hip alignment matters a lot with where your putt's going to go. Um, and that is expressed through people looking at where their foot is or whatnot. And so, if you do those kinds of things and worry less about what your physical body is doing, I think people would be more confident in their putts because when you put too much power in like the outward part of it, like, oh, I only pump faked twice, that's why I missed it. I didn't pump fake the third time. It's like, well, why are you thinking about a pump fake? Pump fake. You need to be thinking about your putt. And so those kinds of things, I think, is where you can tiptoe the line of what's good versus bad um, uh, in helping you make that putt. Yeah, so I do have those strong thoughts on a putting routine, just because it's my favorite part of the game. And then for driving routines, just reminding myself where I want the disc to go, how far I want it to go, what angle I want it to be at when I release it, and just kind of checking off those kinds of things to remind myself. Um, and then again, making sure that I take that deep breath um, before I throw. Um, and I would say that I probably say something along the lines of like, I can hit this shot. Um, my driving is definitely the weaker part of my game. I have approaches and putting like very consistently. I'm in the top 15 of I finish in the top 15 of those aspects, but in the driving I might be like 40th or something. So it's like that kind of thing where my driving is just not as accurate yet, but I'm still telling myself the kinds of things that I need to be telling myself to hit the shot. Um, I think are super important. Um, and yeah, I'd say with any routine, like you can be flexible with it. I think a lot of the lack of like maybe the frustrations or maybe where you start second guessing yourself is if you're inflexible with what's happening. And so just having the flexibility with your routines, I think, is important because if you have to stick to one thing, that's one more thing that you're relying upon that isn't you yourself. So I believe in myself. I don't believe in my routine, and I don't need my routine to be one way in order for me to succeed. There's multiple ways for me to succeed, as long as it's the kinds of things that are positive that are going to help me.
So with that flexibility and the ability to adjust on the fly in round, what are you noticing, and what are some keys that you're kind of picking up on that are saying, okay, I need to fix whatever?
Yeah, so there's so many things that can happen in a round that would require that kind of flexibility. It could be short tee pads, it could be bad weather, it could be you're having to straddle putt and you're a stagger putter. There's lots of things like that that are examples of when you would be put in an uncomfortable position. And so, like one of the first things that the MPO might talk about is, oh, the tee pads are too short. And they're saying that it's messing up their shots, which is completely valid, right? But everyone has to do it. So you have to make the adjustment. And so those kinds of things where you adjust your run up or you throw a standstill. Those kinds of things are where in the moment you're doing something different than your normal routine, but you still have to execute it just as well. And does that answer the question, or
Yeah,
was there
I
another
think so.
aspect to it?
I think so. Well, and this kind of leads into the other one because there's multiple parts of, I guess, adjustments and decision making process. So in, I guess, let's go to decision making process. When you are behind a shot, or I guess let's stick to adjustments. Let's say your game plan off the tee was to do A, you hit tree, now you're with B, and you're approaching that lie, and you have to reassess maybe somewhere you've never been before. What are you trying to be aware of in that decision making process where you're adjusting in the middle of a hole?
Yeah, so I think that you have to be aware of what the best possible score is for that hole now. So maybe I was playing for birdie, but now I'm only playing for par. Or it could be I was playing for par and now I'm playing for bogey at best. So definitely being aware of the score that's the best case scenario at that point, and knowing that knowing the hole itself. And so that's where where your experience with the course really comes into play. Like, how well do you know that hole? If it's a longer hole, if it's right there, can you still save par? And uh, and a lot of the times, I think like the biggest mistakes come from if someone's just still trying to attack too much and they get off the fairway again. And so just accepting that that's the one bad throw that you get. So you're not trying to make another bad throw in that hole. And picking the slower disc or the disc that you know better is the best case scenario in that point where, okay, well, I wanted to throw an approach that was, if it's a par four, I wanted to throw that 275 approach, but now I've still got 350 left to the pin, so I'm just going to throw 200 feet and 150. And both of those I know I can execute like 95% of the time. And that gets me par instead of the birdie that I wanted, but I didn't get frustrated. I didn't do the thing that made me get 2 strokes instead of 1 stroke worse.
And I like the point of if you get a par, you're basically throwing one bad shot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, I like that, the way to look at it that way. Well, I think we'll let you get back to doing what you're doing, hanging out in the cafe, getting some food with Mom.
Yep, we just got some bubble tea.
Oh, perfect. Well, Leah, I appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wait, I have a question. Who made those paintings in the background?
I made those paintings. Yeah, just
well, we should have a paint night one time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, if we come across, we'll definitely do something. That'd be fun.
Okay. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thank you. Yeah, take care. Thank you for watching or listening to the MindSide, episode 11, up next, featuring Matt Bell.